What's going on, guys? TheDrunkItalian here, and welcome back to my World Cup of Hockey prediction results video. Now, if you didn't see my predictions video, be sure to go check that out before you watch this so you have a little bit of context. The World Cup of Hockey has come to an end, of course. Team Canada pulled off the victory. I was there to see it firsthand. It could have been the most boring game of the tournament, save for the last 3 or so minutes when the game completely turned and Canada just mounted a monumental comeback. I know it was only 2 goals, but one on the power play and the one shorthanded after that goal. You just didn't expect it, and yeah, it was just surreal to be there. It was a crazy experience. I'm so happy I went. I'll never forget that experience for the rest of my life. So now that the tournament's over and the results are final, let's compare the results of the tournament to how I had predicted it before the tournament had started. So we're going to first start with Group B, and this is the group that I had said was most difficult to predict, but in fact I actually predicted it perfectly. I predicted Sweden to finish first, with Russia second, moving on to the semis, which of course happened, and then I predicted North America to just miss out, with Finland finishing last. Let's talk about the teams each individually, just run through quickly and kind of break down why they performed the way they did. So in terms of Finland, I predicted them to finish last, and they did in Group B, and it's kind of understandable because given the youth of their team overall, especially on defense, they didn't really have what it takes to shut down the opposition's top scoring threats, whether it be Sweden, Russia, or North America. Finland lost all 3 games, so it definitely showed through with their defensive and their lack of depth. I will say, though, that Finland will be a force in the international hockey domain for the next few years as their young defensive core grows and gets more experience in the NHL, as well as, you know, their forwards like Patrick Laine, Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen. All those guys have really just started off their careers and playing against the best players in the world. It was definitely a good experience for them, but their lack of experience showed through in this tournament. Moving on to North America, who, in my opinion, and I'm sure in everyone's opinion, was the most exciting team to watch in this tournament. They're full of youth, they're full of excitement, their speed was off the charts, and they delivered on their promise, on their hype about this team. All the young guns stepped up and provided a hell of a show throughout this tournament. But they were, again, one of the teams that were lacking on defense. Their offensive abilities can't be questioned. You know, Morgan Riley, Shane Gostisbehere, those guys, huge offensive potential. They still need to work a little bit on their defensive side of the game. One big factor was the loss of Aaron Ekblad due to injury in their first tournament game against Finland. So that definitely hurt their defensive, structure. As Ekblad, he's only 20 years old, but he's definitely going to be an elite defenseman in the NHL. So that loss was huge for Team North America, and they weren't really able to recover. Also, Matt Murray got injured, so John Gibson had to step in. He played all right, but you could see, especially in that 4-3 loss to Russia, they got the lead and then just 4 quick unanswered goals by Russia. You could tell that they were missing a little something on defense to solidify their team and take them to the next level. Russia, again, I wasn't entirely sold on them. In my predictions, I was really going back and forth between picking North America or Russia to go through. Their offense, again, was explosive, one of the most dynamite offenses in the tournament, but they were inconsistent and they didn't deliver when they needed, especially in that game against Sweden. They were held off the scoreboard for basically the entire game. They almost tied it up at the end with 2 Ovechkin goals almost, but their offense, was missing a little something. They don't have those clutch players yet, I don't think, to step up in those big moments and get the big goal. Now, what I will say is Bobrovsky played unbelievable, and that's what I said they needed. They needed Bobrovsky to step up and be lights out, and he was that. Although Russia let in a fair amount of goals, he kept Russia in there and helped support the defense on Russia, which was fairly lacking as well. But in order for Russia to compete internationally, they have to start producing some elite defensemen. They can't keep relying on guys like Andrei Markov and Alexei Yemelin, and they've got Marchenko, they've got Zaitsev coming up. They've got to start producing defensemen if they want to compete internationally in the future. And the last team of this group is Sweden. Obviously, I predicted them to win the group, and they did. Their offense was driven by their defense, and I feel like their forwards didn't really have enough scoring power with the likes of the loss of Henrik Zetterberg and the omission of Gustav Nyquist, who I really think they could have used to bolster their offense. They just didn't have it offensively. They won most of their games by 1 goal, squeaking out Russia, squeaking out North America. They got the level of play that they needed from Henrik Lundqvist. He was great throughout this tournament. Unfortunate they didn't go through to the finals, but it just seemed like they couldn't. Their defense, surprisingly, I don't think they could keep up with the speed of some of the teams like North America, as you could see in that first period of their game, Sweden versus North America. North America just took them by surprise and just stormed the crease, basically, scoring 2 quick goals. Could have been like 3 or 4-0 in that first period. Everyone thought that their defensive core was the best in the tournament. I still thought Canada's was, and I think they proved that, but Sweden's defense, I think they were, again, more relied on to generate scoring, and that kind of hindered their play on a 200-foot scale. So I'm happy that I predicted Group B correct, but let's move on to Group A, where things got a little bit interesting this tournament. So of course I predicted Canada to finish first, which they did, and Team Czech Republic to finish third, which they also did. But an interesting turn of events happened where the Europe and the USA actually flipped positions for my predictions, as Europe finished second, moving on to the semifinals and eventually the finals, and the Americans finished last in that group, not even winning a single game. So let's start with USA, and I don't even know what to say. They were, I mean, everybody knows that it's a huge disappointment for the Americans not even to make it past the group stage in what was arguably the easier group of the tournament. And I think everybody, including myself, gave them too much credit. They lacked skill up front, which is what I said in my predictions, but I still gave them too much credit. I still thought that they had what it took to get them at least to the semifinals and beat teams like Europe and Czech Republic. And the lack of skill on the team was definitely due to their omissions, the players that didn't make it onto the team. Guys like Phil Kessel, who, vocalized his displeasure with not being picked on Twitter. So you gotta wonder what USA was thinking in their picks, and where do they go now? They've slowly declined since Sochi. They didn't even medal. They lost 5-0, I think, in that bronze medal game to Finland, and then now they didn't even make it past the group stage in a best-on-best tournament. So you gotta wonder where things are gonna change. Over the tournament, there were also some questionable lineup choices with the team that they made. John Tortorella scratched Dustin Byfuglien in the first game, and he's probably one of the most dynamic defensemen in the entire game. You gotta wonder why that decision was made, but USA Hockey is in dire straits right now. This current core, is getting older, and maybe the strategy of USA Hockey needs to be a little reworked to compete with teams like Canada. And I think part of that change is gonna happen with the next generation of American hockey players. Guys like Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, Johnny Gaudreau, Seth Jones. All those guys are going to, as they get older and more experienced, these guys are going to become the next superstars in the NHL. USA Hockey needs to cater more towards skill versus purely relying on, bruising hockey and gritty hockey. That's not going to cut it, and teams are getting tougher now that they can withstand the kind of pressure that USA is trying to put on these teams. Now, Team Czech Republic, they performed as expected. I didn't really think they would come last, as I think they had enough skill up front and on defense, and their goaltending was actually fairly good. Michael Neuwirth and Peter Mrazek definitely played well in tandem together in their group stage. They were missing some key players, like I said, David Krejci, Jaromir Jagr, so they lacked depth on defense, and they just couldn't really compete against teams like Canada, obviously, in that first opening game. They competed, but they were missing that defensive depth that the other teams had that they couldn't really match. So now moving on to the featured teams in this tournament, Europe and Canada. We'll start with Team Europe, the runner-up. Huge props to them, first of all. They fooled everybody in this tournament, including myself. I was sort of just going based on who was on their team, which, they had some big names like Kopitar, but they didn't really seem to have it on paper. Overall, it was kind of like a team of misfits, kind of, and I was just blown away at how well they meshed together once the tournament started. Their pre-tournament play, they definitely learned some key lessons, especially against Team North America, about how to play against teams with huge amounts of skill and speed, and they definitely changed their game. It was frustrating as hell to watch, but it was the right strategy to play against Canada, and they almost executed it to perfection, save for those last 3 minutes. So again, no one gave them credit in this tournament. I did not expect them to mesh as well as they did together, and you know, it was smart coaching and play by the team overall. Ralph Kruger, I hadn't heard of him before, but now I have a huge amount of respect for him. Coming from management, being the chairman of Southampton Football Club in England, to head coaching a team of European players from all different countries and bringing them to the finals and giving Canada a run for their money is just unbelievable. And finally, we get to Team Canada, the team we're all waiting for, the winner of the tournament, and the team that I predicted to win the tournament as well. So they were dominant as expected. They had depth throughout their lineup, on forward, on defense, in net. They got solid goaltending from Carey Price throughout the tournament. He was dynamite. Having 11 centers, as I said in my predictions video, I think it was probably an advantage, and it definitely was. Seeing them play throughout the tournament, it's definitely an easier transition to go from center to winger versus winger to center. And Babcock and the coaching staff had so many players at their disposal in every different face-off situation, whether it was on the right side, on the left side, in the offensive zone, defensive zone. He could mix and match the centers and have 2 or 3 centers on one line. Even if one center got kicked out, they could throw another center equally as talented into the circle and rely on them to win big face-offs and drive puck possession that way. The big-time players came to play. Sidney Crosby, I know, Sochi, he didn't really step up. He had 1 goal, and that was in the finals against Sweden. But you know, the kid came to play. You gotta respect him. He's one of the best players in the world, and he, you know, drove Canada's offense. His whole line was so dominant the entire tournament. Guys like Taves also, you saw he was the mastermind behind that winning goal. So the big players came to play in this tournament, and I'm so happy, thankful that I got to watch it live. Hope you guys enjoyed the World Cup of Hockey. It was a blast. You know, it was kind of a blur, really quick tournament, but it was some of the best hockey I've ever watched, and I'm so glad I got to experience it firsthand. So guys, if you like this video, please drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for more NHL content and talking about all things hockey. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, boys.